Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all our Oracle Apex community, depending where you are. My name is Salim Hilayel. I'm a product manager for Oracle Apex. Welcome in another Business Innovations webcast series sessions. And today's session is about using Oracle Apex and low-code solutions to collect Atlantic US saltwater fisheries data. How cool is that? Our customer for this session is the Atlantic Coastal Cooperative Statistics Program, shortly known as ACCSP, which was established in 1995. I have Jeff White, the ACCSP Director, and Julie Simpson, the Deputy Director. I have also Karen from TH Technology and Jim from Zero Defect Computing, who have been very helpful consultants in ACCSP Apex journey. I'll hand over the mic to you, Jeff, to tell us about your journey with Oracle Apex, why you chose Apex. Get rolling. Thank you.
Outstanding. Thank you, Salim, for having us here today. Let me add my screen to the webinar here, and away we go. So we're excited to share ways that Oracle has powered and enabled us, the ACCSP, to modernize data collection for Atlantic Coast United States saltwater fisheries. So while many people like to eat fish or even go fishing, there's a group of dedicated scientists and government agency staff, including database and software programmers, involved in the data collection and data management aspects of fisheries. So I am Jeff White, the director of the Atlantic Coastal Cooperative Statistics Program. We're part of the Atlantic States Marine Fisheries Commission, and our panel today, as Salim mentioned, includes ACCSP's Deputy Director, Julie Simpson. She'll give a demonstration of some of the application features later on, and two of our Oracle ACE contractors and consultants, Karen Cannell and Jim Saprinsky, who've been instrumental in extending our capabilities of the more complex functionings and being able to hand off that ownership and maintenance back to our staff of fish biologists and IT professionals. So today we're going to give a brief introduction to marine fisheries reporting. That's our business world, and touch on a little bit why Apex is the right fit for us, show you a bit of our 25-year history with Oracle products, and highlight some of our applications that we're currently running in Apex 23.1. And that is a picture of me catching a fish that happens to be a cobia. And if you haven't had one, they are delicious. So this image is just kind of a graphic of the world of fishing, our world of business to innovate within. And at a global and a coastal scale, getting fish to your plate involves a lot of steps, and several of which require the fisherman or the wholesale dealer to report their catch to regulatory agencies. And as that fish product is moved from fishing boats to dealers to local markets and restaurants, the regulatory agencies focus on the data collection for the catch as the first point of sale on a wholesaler. So in this graphic, ACCSP functions along the vertical arrows to both collect and consolidate data to support science and management, and then bring that back down to the marine resources and science commissions and agencies and science building agencies. And if it were only as simple as the last graphic. So a single fishing trip, a vessel leaving the dock to deploy gear and return hopefully with fish in the hold, may have up to 6 independent data streams. And these data streams are pictured as declarations, the actual fishing trip of what was caught, where, some form of electronic monitoring by GPS location or onboard cameras, in some cases dockside intercepts to count and measure the fish, the selling of the fish to a commercial dealer, and even some additional biological sampling for the length, weight, or hard parts like scales or otoliths to age the fish by counting rings, almost like tree rings. So in short, there's a lot of data that are captured that are used to evaluate the health of the population of the fish and help set what future catch regulations should be or may be. So the ACCSP was created as a regional fisheries information network back in 1995 to address data collection, compilation, and data sharing difficulties associated with paper reporting, data silos, and overlapping reporting systems. Things that still kind of exist in our world. Graphically, the ACCSP coordinates the Atlantic coast of the United States, where our sister fins, or Fisheries Information Networks, operate in the Gulf of Mexico, Pacific, West Pacific, and Alaska. And in a striking example of government efficiency, we have 23 partners that are active in doing all this. And that's a lot of coordination. It's one of the drivers for using Oracle Apex across these jurisdictional and geographic lines. And all the while where we don't charge our partner agencies to use the ACCSP data systems. So what are the 4 major areas that ACCSP roles and manages? So there's over 100 managed saltwater species fisheries. That's about 1,300 dealers and over 6,000 fishermen. And so we work to standardize data collection, develop the reporting tools, provide access to all that data historically, and also support new initiatives out in our partners. And so we aim to kind of consolidate the 95% plus similarities between these systems and answer our partners on their core data needs. And so we utilize Oracle Apex in both the data collection and the data reporting tools, and provide access to all these data through our online data warehouse. So Salim pointed out, why Apex?
I have a question. Sorry to interrupt you, Jeff. And
please go ahead.
It's related to what you have been mentioning there. Is are you using an analytical Oracle database server, or transactional? Because you got plenty of data over there, or maybe both of them.
Yes, we have both. We have 2 separate systems, and that's further in the presentation, but we have a transactional data reporting system, and then we also have a separate data warehouse that we do all the reporting out of. And we use Apex tools for both of them. We have examples of that coming up a little bit later.
Nice, amazing. Another question also related to the reporting. So which printing server do you use to print your reports?
We use a Apex Office Print internally that allows us to format items and allow us to print it either internally or send reports out to the fish dealers or fishermen so they can print it. And that's been a tool that's really, really useful for us.
Nice, great. Thank you.
All right, so moving on, back to the why Apex? Well, first of all, we've got 23 different agencies. Not being a single business, we can't really tell 23 agencies what products to use and be part of the inside of their networks. So we needed to find tools that we could use online, use based on our Oracle database licensing, and kind of figure out our relatively rapid deployment schedule of changing things, and that's rapid relative to federal and state government processes. Sometimes there are other companies or programs that can put more staff and money resources on things, but probably can develop things faster. But we do pretty well in the fisheries world. We've got a core staff of about 16 people. 12 are folks with fisheries biology degrees like myself. We do have 4 current staff with IT degrees. And of course, we rely on contractors and previous staff with a lot more of the technical training to get that through. But we've loved Apex from the standpoint of understanding the complex fisheries process, learning from those that have done the heavy lifting on the programming, and then being able to design, create, and deploy Apex applications as a broader staff and be able to maintain them. So it's allowed us for kind of a common building standpoint for flexible adoption and implementation. It's lighter bandwidth, which sounds a little silly in this day and age, but when we started with Oracle Forms and the JInitiator download over dial-up in the early 2000s, lighter bandwidth was a thing. Currently, we're running Oracle Database 19c on-prem. We have Apex 23.1, and we're using a cloud Apex listener. So moving on to our transactional system, SAFIS is our standard Atlantic Fisheries Information System. It's a unified fisheries-dependent reporting system, houses live system since 2004. So we've got data stored in standard codes. Data is in, this platform of variety of applications is used by almost all 23 of our partners, and we can use Oracle Online Apex web pages, mobile apps, file upload, API basis, all of it kind of interacts with that. Within SAFIS, getting into the Apex apps, we've got 6 of them highlighted here. The SMS, starting kind of in the 4 o'clock position here, is the SAFIS management system. That ties it all together. That's where our partner agency administrators manage their participants, their data codes, the features, they view reports on the data flows and what's happening. So going counterclockwise, eTrips is a fisherman trip reporting tool. Electronic dealer reporting is EDR. E-logbook is for private recreational fishing logs. Lobsta is for states to manage American lobster trap tag allocation. So each lobster pot has a tag on it that says what number it is and then therefore who it belongs to. And then there's a vessel tracking application. That is our newest application, enabling states to view the GPS locations of fishing and fishing activity for boats within that that have those data loggers installed. And so in 2023, the electronic dealer reporting and eTrips data were submitted by over 1,300 active dealers, over 6,000 active harvesters, for a total record count of over 1 million rows. So this is pretty much, it's big in the world of fisheries. It may be small in the world of other Oracle systems.
I have a question regarding that from a customer.
Please go ahead.
It's actually regarding the applications that you have built with Apex. So what was among these applications, which one is the most challenging one, and why is that?
Kind of most challenging, I'd say SMS, the SAFIS management system, is the most, it's the core that holds everything together. So it's been challenging from the standpoint of we have a switchboard that Julie's going to explain later, but basically partners can add which fields they want to display, and depending on the user's license type and the items that they choose in their active fishing report, they get different questions and fields and validations and everything else. So that one is, it's really a pretty complex and pretty exciting tool in the world of fisheries, and as well as in data reporting. So
nice. Another customer is asking, like, why did you move again from Oracle Forms to Apex? You didn't get it. And was there a converter tool for that once you done the migration, or once you moved from Oracle Forms to Apex? Good question.
So we started with Oracle Forms in 2004, and we moved to Apex several years later, and it was really to that lighter bandwidth question. And gonna have to rely a little later in the presentation on my coworkers on what tools were available to do that. I know that Karen Canal was instrumental with that, and it was a variety of tools, almost a one-off thing to get through that, but it wasn't. Wasn't at the time. Again, we're going back 20 years. A quick and easy tool shift. There's probably better ways to do it now.
Well, yeah, that's one thing, and part of the answer to that question, I would say that we used to have a tool. So if you Google, we used to have a very old tool that does the migration or from Oracle Forms to Apex, but it wasn't doing really a good job. So we stopped shipping that tool because they are totally two different paradigms. You're moving from client server to web technology, where the less is better. So you focus on an object and you have all these navigational links. Your design should be responsive, so you should be able to use it on tablet and phone devices and so on. So yeah, the more you use Apex, the more you will find that it's actually very easy to develop Oracle Forms and start even from scratch. So you don't even need that tool anymore. We have customers who have done it. So yeah, great, good question. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm just going to step forward to the other major system we have. Our data warehouse is for reporting all of these great information rows back out. Again, we have data from 23 partners, both state and federal data feeds. We merge the dealer reporting and the fisherman reporting data, and even the information from SAFIS, the transactional system, is ported over to the data warehouse on a regular basis. We've updated this query interface a couple of times over the last few years. Again, there's a timeline later on. And we've also automated the confidentiality. So we have users that log in, and each of the 23 partners are the owners of the data set. We are the stewards of their data. And so when we ask for them to identify and handle the data confidentiality, when a particular user's confidentiality runs out by date or agency, that's automatically applied and table driven, which is a pretty wild approach. And also, we've been able to implement tools so that when you run the same Apex report, different users based on their confidentiality rules will see different results. Getting into the data warehouse Apex applications, we have the public data warehouse that holds non-confidential data and downloaded information that has about 3.8 million page views last year. And the login data warehouse, those data are presented based on the user's level of access and confidentiality. And that's had about 150,000 page views. And those queries and workbooks can be saved and reused by those users. So it blends several Oracle products, not just the database storage, the Apex interface. We use real application security, which is co-developed between our staff and our Oracle ACE contractors, and both the public and the data login data warehouse contain commercial reports, recreational fishing reports, biological and bycatch inventories, the confidentiality of account management, and more administrative tools. And so in the page views, a lot more hits on the public data warehouse than the login part, but that pattern is reversed. When you look at report rows, the public warehouse has about 11 million rows, where the login data warehouse with more confidential rows and granular levels of detail has about 37 million rows of information in it. And so thanks to Karen and Jim, our Oracle development team, for helping bridge the implementation across Apex and RAS for real application security, which really helps parse out and show folks what they should be doing, what they should be able to see. Shifting a little bit from commercial data to recreational fisheries data collection, the ACCSP has a role with NOAA, the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration, and their Marine Recreational Information Program. So NOAA captures the annual statistics on private and for-hire saltwater, saltwater fishing, and they're responsible for the design and calculation of the estimate, design of the survey and calculation of the estimates. The states and ACCSP administers a few of those in the field data collections, either by phone calls or staff out in the field. That's 13 states, 250 field staff, about 12,000 sampling days a year. So it's really important to be in the right place at the right time. And we use two different things within Apex to make that go. There's an assignment tracking application that we built in-house that modernizes kind of the data management. It takes all those 12,000 assignments and staff, puts them in a web browser, and distributes to the 13 Atlantic states that are part of that project. We also have a centralized Apex calling script for the for-hire telephone survey to walk people through exactly what questions to ask on that call. It's got pretty complicated skip logic and things like that that are built into it. And on the Atlantic coast, The reliable recreational catch statistics depend on these staff being out there and collecting information from the recreational fishermen. So again, it's a little surprising in the government and recreational and fishing worlds. Efficiency, we shared the entire system with Gulfin, our sister agency, and that's now, this system is now deployed in more states in the Gulf of Mexico. So create it once, deploy it multiple times, and make those kinds of things work out pretty well. This next screenshot is just a part of the assignment tracking application. This was something created by biologists for biologists. Screenshot notes just a couple of the metrics that are presented to all 200 state staff. It highlights their accomplishments, a little bit of the pride in their work, and once it was developed, it simply updates upon every login, and if they change the hierarchy or the granular scope, what they're looking at, one particular year, one particular state, the results all change for them on the fly. And this is the ATA from an Apex application, includes over 50 pages. It has site and headboat assignments, the sampling activity calendar, the data editing and change logs, reports on metrics, and also administrative tools. And it has the system send out email reminders to folks of what they, our staff, of what they need to do. What does the data look like through the year? Fishing on the Atlantic coast of the United States is a bit seasonal. There's more fishing activity in the warmer summer months than in the colder months, and that's just kind of shown in this graphic. The purple bars are the previous year, and the teal bars are 2023, and so that kind of shows a bit of the distribution of what fishing occurs. Refocusing back on our Oracle history, this has started back in 1995, where we created, we had 2 employees and started with the Oracle data warehouse and initial Oracle dealer reporting with Oracle Forms and JInitiator. And that JInitiator was the driver for the low-code, lighter bandwidth implementation of Apex. And so back in 2004, the challenge was downloading these huge applets and initiators over dial-up connections. And so in 2007, we started with Apex 3, or HTML-DB 3.0. And 2009, we added single sign-on. And at that point, Oracle had some limited authentication schemes, but we're looking forward to using the more current methods now and in the near future. In 2016, we deployed a recreational sampling in the assignment tracking application, which I just showed you. And in 2017, we transitioned the data warehouse query interface from Oracle Discoverer to Apex and added in RAS, or Real Application Security, in 2023. And so we've done all this with a pretty small team of app developers, biologists, contractors, and we've been able to kind of learn a lot from folks that program the complex parts and hand it back to us for this kind of low-code and management of these things to be able to move forward. So it's proven very efficient for us, and now we have 9 independent applications being managed by 16 employees and being responsive to a few tens of thousands of users. So we're pretty excited about where that is. And then my last slide is really the future planning. What do we have coming up next relative to Oracle and Apex? So in 2024, we're doing the electronic dealer reporting redesign. So modernizing some of that system, adding a bit of the switchboard. And what we're really excited about is the opportunity to explore Apex and the progressive web apps so that when we deploy this both as a web interface, we can get a bit more mobile activities going as well, and that responsive design that Celine brought up earlier. Our 2 other projects to highlight here are using Oracle spatial tools to populate multiple data fields. So if we pick a lat long, be able to populate an area, a sub area, potentially a particular management area, and streamline the user interface in those types of things. And then also to modernize our single sign-on infrastructure to integrate with external systems. So could use your password if we work with one of our other government agencies, could a sign on to our system also work as a sign on to their system and make things easier for fishermen on the water or dealers when they need to log into multiple applications to complete their regulatory reporting. And so with that, I'll ask Salim if there are other questions now. After that, we'll move over to Julie for the demonstration.
Yeah, just one question. This is from me. Are you planning to implement AI also in the future? Because now it's the trend. Everyone wants to use AI and utilize the power of the machine instead of, analyzing the data yourself, or maybe for suggestion or smart answering, or I don't know.
Yep. So yes is a short answer. The when is what we're trying to figure out. But using AI to build up a bit more of the user's history, to streamline the user experience, to prompt them for the right responses. But we don't want the applications to answer for people because they might have been using a particular fishing gear for 90% of their work, we don't want it to answer and say, oh, well, wait, you changed your fishing gear on this day because you were after a different species of fish. You were in a different area. And so being able to say, yep, here's a consistent history, but give us a real answer for what's happening differently today. And so from the reporting app standpoint, I think there's a lot of opportunities there that we're excited about. And there's probably some other really good ways, whether that's through the spatial tools or through the data reporting, to capture some of the benefits of AI.
Right, nice. Best of luck. It's an amazing system.
Thank you so much for having us. With that, I'm going to stop sharing and turn it over to Julie Simpson, our Deputy Director, to demonstrate some of the tools.
All right, thanks, Jeff. Can everybody see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so what I want to do is start out our demo by talking a little bit about the eTrips application and the SAFIS management system that Jeff had mentioned earlier. So what I'm going to do is start out by logging in as a user. Okay, so what I'm going to do is log into the eTrips system. And I'm going to change my permit there to use my Massachusetts permit. So what I'm going to start out by doing is to show you guys the favorites menu item, because this is really where we send people when they first sign up. We send them to the favorites because there's a lot of information that folks are being asked to answer in these reports. And so the more that we can help them out by having things that are common to their reports filled out for them really leads to them answering the questions that change a lot. They answer those well because they're not having to answer a ton of other questions that are always the same. And so here what you can see is that right now we're on show all, but you could pick the specific part of the trip that you want to look at. All of these are the same basic, they're all the same basic menu. So you can add a favorite, you could delete a favorite, or you could save a favorite if you edit it. And I'll show you how to do that in a minute. And we have favorites for all of these different sections. And so you could go down and do that for any of these. The one that I think is particularly interesting here is you can actually add a favorite effort for the areas by using the autofill effort favorite. And so what this does is this actually, let me see if I can make it a little bigger for you there. What this will do is I can zoom in here, and then I can just say, this is where I'm fishing. And so it starts to autofill things because you can use map autofill. What I'm going to do is go ahead and add a trip favorite. I'll go ahead and delete this one just so that it doesn't show up. I'll just show you how it works. So if I were to say I'm going to be in Massachusetts, And I can scroll here, or I can just start typing things, and then I can use the search. And what I want to do is I want to actually change my end port. So I'm going to start typing that one because there's a lot of end ports. So I'm going to go to Scituate, which is just a little south of Cohasset. But I'm going to still go ahead and use the same vessel here that I have in my default. So I can go ahead and save that trip effort. But what you'll see here is the default I'm still going to leave as Chilmark because I don't use that other end port very often. So what we'll do is now we'll go to the enter report area, and I'm going to use that Massachusetts license. So what you'll see is those 3 trip favorites that we have in here. We now have our new Scituate one, and then we have our default, and you can see that the default is already filled in here. And so all I would have to do here is enter some other information like my start port, and you'll notice that my favorite shows up at the very top because that's something that we assume that's what you're going to be using, so we put it there and it's nice and easy for you. And I would choose my start date. I started this today, and I started at really early in the morning. And then I would say that I ended my trip at 10 a.m. So this is a question that I wanted to draw your attention to. This one is the partner VTR, and I wanted to draw your attention to this because this is something I want to show you on the admin section. Jeff had talked about the switchboard earlier, and what you'll see is that there's a box around this. There's this big box, and then there's this one question that's in this big box, and that's because this is where we put those switchboard items. So you'll notice that partner VTR is here because this is where we'll ask any extra questions. The start port is also an extra question, but we do put it up here because we want it to be near the end port. So start port is up here, and it's also a question that's not always required. It is required here, and that's why you'll see the little red. So start port is an exception, but to the big box rule, so to speak. But I wanted to draw your attention to this because I want to show you that in the other account. So what I'm going to do now is sign out real quick and just go into the administrative account for this particular partner. So here I'm going to enter into the SAFIS management system. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to actually click, well, I'm going to click Massachusetts, and then I'm going to click switchboard. And so there's, again, a lot of different places that you can, different parts of the report that you can do your favorites. What I'm going to do is start with the report component attributes and just show this to you. And so the first thing you need to do is you would need to choose the part of the report that you want to add or your attribute for. So I'm going to add the trip header. And this is where I want to show you, this is where you can just toggle extra questions. So if you remember, I had said start port. The start port is here and the partner VTR number is here. So that's why partner VTR number is showing up in that little box. It's because this partner has chosen to add that question. So if they wanted to add another question like the number of crew, you could highlight it over here, move it over there, and then just say save optional data elements. And now that question would show up right next to the other one. Because the partner is using this, I don't want to actually leave this here because that will mess up their testing. So I'm actually going to remove it real quick and save it again so that we don't mess up the testing that they're doing. So that's how the switchboard works and how the favorites work in eTrips. And those help to really streamline the reporting for the user, but it also really helps to customize the report for each of our partners. So the next thing that I'm going to do is pop back over to our slideshow. Oops, not from the beginning. Let me just exit that real quick. I will start it from the current slide. Okay, so we've already talked about the switchboard and the favorites. So now what I wanted to talk about a little bit was the vessel tracking application. This is a application that we built to put together that uses the Oracle spatial aspects, and it's been very interesting. What we do is we have, there are cellular trackers that are on certain vessels, and we ingest those data through an API. And then this is the interface that we built for the partners to be able to look at those data. And so the first thing that they'll start out with by doing is to plot that trip track. So they'll choose a trip selection, and then they will click plot trip track for that trip. We've been given permission, and Jeff had talked about confidentiality. So this is a trip where we've been given permission to show you this. And that's one of the reasons that we're demoing it, not in the application because of the confidentiality, but on the slides. So this is the whole vessel track. So as you can see, there's different colors displayed here. The faster the boat is going, if it's above 5 knots, it's green. If it's orange, it's 3 to 5 knots is the traveling speed. And then if it's red, it's less than 3 knots. So you can see that the vessel is pretty much chugging right along, and then there's definitely places where there's orange and red that very likely indicate that there's fishing happening. So what we're going to do is we're going to just zoom to a selection here. So we're going to highlight this area and click on a button called Zoom to Selection. And what it's going to do is it's going to actually just zoom right in. And now what you can really see is you can see the boat actually circling in an area. These are lobster boats, and so they're actually pulling traps. So you can see that that behavior shows us a fishing behavior. So this is really very useful information for our partners to be able to see in the viewer. The next thing that we have here, and again, we've been given permission to share this one, is that this is another track, and this slide actually shows that what we do is, I mentioned before, you pick a trip and then you can display that. In this case, what we're doing is we're showing you this, but what you can see is it kind of goes in one direction, and then it doesn't really seem, it turns red, and then it just kind of disappears. When the user is entering their data, they enter a start and end time. And so we match it to that start and end time. And it looks like the start and end time on the report on this one were not quite accurate. So what we show the user is these black tracks, and we say, we think this is probably associated with that trip. And then what the user can do as an administrator is say, yes, that's definitely the return version of that. And they can associate those pings or data points with that trip so that there's full accuracy there. And those are just a couple of the features that we're using in our vessel transit application that is leveraging Oracle Spatial. So the last thing that I would like to cover in the demo is to talk a little bit about RAS user accounts. Again, we implemented
Sorry,
RAS.
Julia. I have actually a question. Somebody's asking about the map region. Are you using a customized map region, or is this the native Apex map region?
This is the native Apex map region.
Okay, cool. Nice. It's awesome. I love the system so far.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Okay, so moving on to RAS, we implemented RAS last year. And when I say we, I primarily mean that, you know, we brought in Jim and Karen, and they did all the lion's share of the work for this. So there are 3 RAS user types that we have. That's the direct user that connects directly to the database. And then we have users that connect to the database via an Apex application. And they are doing that either as an internal user or as staff, or as an external user who is a partner. And so you can see there that the direct user doesn't need to connect to Apex. That's a no, but they do need a connect role. And then there's the inverse of that for the folks that are using the Apex applications. So how are we leveraging RAS? What are we doing with it? Again, as we've mentioned a couple of times, our data is confidential. So We table drive what a person is able to see based on the data source, which is our partner ID. So it says you can see information from these data sources. And then the next question is, what level of data can you see? Can you see participant information, such as the name of the dealer, or can you just see, hey, this is their randomly generated dealer number, so it doesn't mean anything to you, but you can't see their name. And so again, we table drive all of that, and RAS is picking all of that up. And so we can create this row at the bottom to see that no one actually has to change any of the queries in the application. And so what happens here is, because the person previously had Ys, and meaning they were allowed to see that participant information, and also that they were able to see data from these sources, they're able to see this information, which again, we can't show you because it is confidential. So we blurred it out. But we were able to put this information and display that to this user. If we go ahead and look at another user, what you see here is that participant information is no. So there's an N in that role. And so it generates a different result when we are looking at the data information here. And what you'll see is you'll still see things like, can you see the data supplier? Can you see the state code? Can you see the count of information? Yes, because those data are not restricted. However, the restricted data in that top box, you can see is either blank, or it says not applicable, or it says restricted. And that's because these are the things that we can't let you see based on your level of access. Salim, if you have any questions, I'm going to pause real quick, and I'm also going to pass it over to Karen and Jim to talk a little bit from their perspective. So I'm going to put up their slide real quick.
Hey, thank you, Julie. Salim, anything from?
I think I have a
the
question
audience?
for you, Karen, actually. It's
Oh,
related
great.
to someone is new to this concept of RAS, and he feels that it's similar to VPD. So why are you using RAS instead of VPD? Or maybe to rephrase it, when do we say that VPD maybe is not suitable and you need to use RAS?
Well, I'll start, and then I'm going to punt to Jim. We tried VPD years ago, and it just got to be too much to maintain for us. We needed a one-stop solution. And when Julie and Jeff said, "Hey, Karen, now it's time. We really need to pull the plug on this," I was busy with something else, and I said, "Hey, Jim, come on in." And Jim looked at it. It was more than 30 seconds, but very quickly said, "No, RAS is the way to go." And Jim, can you pull more out on that? Explain more.
Yeah, absolutely. Basically, excuse me, RAS is VPD 2.0. That's the way I think about it.
Mm-hmm.
And the real strength of it is that it's really designed more around being able to interface with any type of application, whether you're connecting to, or really connecting to a database, whether you're using SQL Plus, SQL Developer. We do have super users within the ACCSP's community that use tools like that. In the past, they used Discoverer, for example. So they were logging directly into the database, right? To do certain things. Obviously, they had limited privileges to pull data out using very complex queries. We needed to have a way to be able to lock them out of or lock them into only the data that they had access to based on their privileges, as Julie showed. But then we had an Apex application as well. And to implement the same business rules, it made sense, being a DBA. I'm sorry, I was thinking like a DBA here. Let's implement them one time in one place, and that's within the system itself. Does that make sense, Karen? Do you want to augment that a little bit?
No, that's exactly it, Jim. And what happened is you've heard confidentiality, and fisheries confidentiality rules are complex. And had we had RAS when we worked on the data warehouse and implemented that, then it would have saved development times exponentially, because I had to build in confidentiality rules at the data level for every query.
Right.
RAS means all that coding goes away. I can trust that this user is only going to see this data. Now, that means I still have authorizational work to do in the Apex app according to buttons and regions and navigation, but anything data, I don't have to worry about that. And data is where our confidentiality is most important. So
Right.
what a time saver. Not that it was easy. I think Jim and I both lost some hairs on that one.
Yeah, well,
There
actually,
were definite high-level discussions on the best way to do this, and
yeah,
it was not abnormal for Karen to go, stay in your lane. I know how Apex works, and vice versa. In fact, we've done a presentation several times, basically saying we really had to listen to each other and understand each other's perspectives, right? And I think that was for us as ACE directors, but also as experts in the world of database and Apex, right? We've got probably 60 years of IT experience between us, right?
yeah.
It was really valuable to learn that lesson over again. Sorry,
Nice.
Salim, I talked over you.
Oh, no, I mean, don't you agree with me that this is probably a feature of Apex being part of the database itself? So it could utilize like DPD, RAS, depending on the situation. That's something that you can use right away. It's because Oracle database is not just a database; it's a platform. So whether you will go with VPD or RAS, you easily utilize those functionalities and features inside of Apex natively. To be honest,
Yeah,
nice.
right. One other advantage, by the way, of VPD is that if you're using an enterprise level single sign-on system, it's essentially built exactly for that. So if you're using something, for example, like Active Directory or Oracle Identity Management, you're ready to go. In fact, it makes it simpler with RAS than with VPD,
With RAS.
to be honest.
Nice.
Yeah, I was going to, you mentioned VPD in there, but RAS is really built for these things. Once you unravel the documentation, and we had help from the RAS team and SCADs have help from the Apex team on, because our implementation, ACCSP's confidentiality rules, far more complex than the example.
That's actually the question that I have for you is, what was the biggest challenge in implementing RAS and Apex together with Apex?
Getting RAS to work.
Sharon, you go first.
Yeah, from my perspective, there aren't a lot of examples out there. The examples are very simplistic. If that was my security case, I would not be using RAS. So we had row level security and item level security, and reading the documentation and making it work was not intuitive.
Right. And in fact, yeah, that I would agree with that. I think it was also trying to figure out what parts of RAS we actually really did need, right?
Yeah.
There were certain things that, because we weren't really using an enterprise single sign-on system, we didn't need. And it was not intuitively obvious that, for example, in our case, we did not need to implement a RAS workspace. We were able to get around those types of things. And then there were other things that we literally had to reach out to the folks at the Apex team itself and talk with some of the PMs at Apex to explain to us intrinsically how connections were being made uh, to the application, right? And through the application, and how uh, uh, those things were being funneled through eventually to the database and sort of being intercepted by RAS along the way. And we did figure that out, but it took us quite a bit of time to really get to that place. The best thing we did is we built a completely separate mini system. In fact, we based it initially on the TPCH model because that was much more applicable than the examples in the documentation. And we're hoping one of these days we're going to be able to do a mini white paper on that to really clarify how powerful this tool is, because especially the ability to block data at the column level. And by the way, our examples are relatively simple, but one of the things that's not evident from some of those is that in certain cases, what if you have a value in a column that's null, and the fact that it's null has significant value, right? You're actually able to supply a different value like n/a to obfuscate that value. And that's just amazing that you can do that at a column by really a row and column level. It's really cool.
One thing I want to point out here, and this is where Jim and I kind of went developer DBA. The ACCSP data warehouse has been out there for a long time, public and the login, and people are using it. So Jim was like, well, we're going to come in and we'll just wipe out all of these no application items. I said, Jim, if you can't use application items in an Apex app, it ain't going to fly. So we went back and forth, and ultimately we realized that we could, there were certain key values needed for RAS to work that have to be set in a post-auth trigger, and they could not be in application items because there's nothing to set it with yet. The handoff to RAS hadn't happened yet. So we can honestly say with very minimal refactoring, we were able to turn RAS on, and that refactoring was just in the key application items in a post-auth. And then
Right.
we needed the logout, the post disconnect, to clean up the RAS session if someone just left their session and didn't log out. That was another one where Jim got kind of mad at me because I'm saying, hey, everything's working great. And he's like, you're
no, it's
leaving
not.
litter.
It was one of those things. Yeah.
What is going on with this
is,
database?
Yeah, we did extensive, and this is very important. We did extensive system and integrated testing by a really great team of users at ACCSP. We're just like, okay, wreck this thing. And they did. And we found out, sometimes within the last few days, ooh, that's not going to work. And we're going to have to do X, Y, and Z. But we were able to overcome it. Right. I think the reason a lot of people shy away from VPD and even VPD and RAS is they just kind of take a look at it and it's just like, this is so complex, and there aren't a lot of really elegant examples of how to make this work inside an app, and they just get frustrated and walk away from it. It took us, we're not kidding, it took us about 15 months from can we do this to we finally implemented. We did it over stages. We did not, because we worked around ACCSP's business cycle as well. We didn't want to just throw a switch and suddenly block hundreds or thousands of users out of the system.
Well, obviously, it's an advanced feature of the database,
Yes.
and you did a good job implementing it. Great.
Like, thank you.
And what's even better, it's integrated with Apex.
Right.
Lovely.
Yes, it is.
I will say,
and all that extra work, excuse me, Karen, but all that extra work was really worth it from our standpoint as staff, because now there's fewer database items for us to manage. When there is a user partner code change, if a partner adds a field in the switchboard and there's a new data collection item this month, we don't have to change a view for that partner to get their data out in the data warehouse. We don't have to remember that the staff person 3 years ago built a table for that end user. it's part of the system. It integrates into RAS. It shows up when the user wants it. And now we've got an efficient system that has less maintenance. And that's another part of the low code connection with Apex. Is a huge benefit for us. That's why it's worth the time.
Right.
And once the complexities are figured out with our Oracle ACE team, now our staff can manage and maintain it and make additional changes without going back out to another contract cycle. And so that's the speed, that's the efficiency, that's where it helps us as a business or quasi-business agency. So super excited about that, just in how the partnerships work with our agency partners as well as our Oracle ACE partners to implement these things and hand them off and keep us moving and successful. Mostly on our own, and then we phone in a friend often and when we need it.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome. I actually have a question for you guys. Like, if somebody's new to Apex, how do you advise those new customers to start their projects and start their learning journey?
Mhm.
What's your advice for them?
Ooh,
I think
that's a
Julie
good
might
question.
have the best answer on this one, but it might also be Karen. So go ahead, Karen.
Yeah, Julie, from your perspective, what would it be?
From our perspective, I'll say it's easy to code in Apex. It's easy to build stuff. And I think the biggest, I'll say pitfall people can fall into is you get those first requirements and you're like, excellent. And you just start building and building and building and building. And you're not using the agile process, and you forgot to take a pause and go back to your product owner and say, do you want this feature? Because stuff is easy to build. And so each little time of like, oh, it's really easy to do this and this and this and this. And you might spend a lot of time building a lot of cool stuff that nobody really wants. So just be careful that even though it's super easy, make sure you manage your time so that you're not just building all the fun stuff because you can and it's not real hard.
Definitely.
So that's
My point.
That's a good answer, actually. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
It's so
Yeah,
easy
my-
that you can build applications incredibly quickly, and suddenly you
Too
find like,
quickly.
oh, too many applications.
And
Nice.
I'll jump on there, Karen. I kind of talked over you there for a bit. One of the things that native map region, right? That Julie was showing, the mapping of boats and ships actually out at sea. That is super easy to code into. You can supply data in innumerable forms. I played with that intensely. And it's got, 5 or 6 different features that you can use, and it's almost as powerful as some of the stuff in Spatial Studio. And in fact, it's kind of like dragging behind Spatial Studio features by maybe a few weeks or months. So every new iteration of Apex that comes out has more spatial stuff that you can do. But so if you want to do a almost no code solution, you can use the native map region, but you can actually learn the same techniques in Spatial Studio. And if you want to implement them in more robust code inside Apex or inside PL SQL objects or whatever, you can do it. It's so easy. I could even do it as an old school DBA. So yeah, and plus there are tons of sample applications out there. So you can take a look at, and they're very well written, very well documented. And I really would love to eventually do one of these for RAS, so people could really understand, okay, this is the way you would do it.
And they are part of the platform itself.
Easier.
So you don't have to go outside your platform. They are inside Apex. There is a component called Gallery or App Gallery where you can go and install sample applications or even starter applications, full application, and get trained. I think part of the answer to such question is get trained. So if you go to apex.oracle.com/go/professional, I'm going to put the link down. You can get trained. We have a learning path for that. And if you go also to apex.oracle.com/HOLS, we have plenty of hands-on labs that you can try for yourself. And definitely the documentation. Don't forget to watch sessions like these, like the ones that we were having today. Get connected on Twitter, on Facebook, on LinkedIn, read blogs, and so on. This is how I started learning Apex, to be honest. So yeah, good. So probably we're running out of time here. So if you allow me, I have only a couple of questions, probably for you, Jeff. Like, what features would you like to see in the future in Oracle Apex? That's from me. You are mute.
The one we're most interested in is the progressive web app. We have a business case to change our electronic dealer reporting to a progressive web app that'll work on both the computing and online platforms, as well as kind of tablets out at the docks, bringing it in, hand off a particular report to from one person at the dock to the person doing the sales slips inside, and not have to go with a installed web app on a mobile platform. And so progressive web app is our really exciting one, and we're really wanting to test that out later this year.
Perfect. So are you guys planning to move to the cloud in the future? Are there any plans?
We're partly there, and we're moving a bit more to become a bit more scalable, as well as redundant, so that our systems are just a bit more robust. The more folks that are using the systems, the more data points that we have coming in, the more we have to think about how do we grow at the pace of the industry and the technology and the tools that are going on in our world.
Nice, great.
That's a thing that because ACCSP every step of the way has been very willing to be leading edge and almost bleeding edge with Apex, to like, okay, try it. They've made a lot of advances a lot more quickly, and grown to adopt all these applications in and be responsible for all this data across all the partners, where it was a risk, and you guys still take risks, but it's grown into a really cool thing. So we're looking forward to that PWA soon. We'll do the AI stuff soon, but give us PWA next release. So thank you. I have to thank Julie and Jeff.
We do have support.
Career go by.
We do have some support for PWA. We're going to continue working on that for sure. So yeah, guys, Jeff, Julie, Karen, and Jim, thank you very much for being here in this session. Guys who are new to Apex, if you're watching us, please don't forget to watch the past sessions. The link is down there. Thank you very much again for your time and effort. I appreciate it. It was amazing, and it's a great job. Thank you, guys.
Great.
Thank you
for having us.
Thank you.
Have a good
Thanks.
day. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye, folks.